On this episode of the Drtyna Show, I'm going to share something really personal with you, and it is how I literally just purged my life over the past 2 months. And I want to share with you some strategies and some tips and some tools that I learned along the way because I did my research before I started. I'm going to give you the backstory on me. This is a very personal episode, so hang in there because I promise you there's going to be some pearls in here for you. I tie it into health, don't worry. I tie it into metabolic health even. But I've had a crazy week and I thought this would make for a great podcast episode because so many of us are hanging on to so much and it is directly impacting our health along the way. So I'm going to share with you how I got my pain down, how I even lost an inch off of my waist, all because I purged all my crap. So let's jump in. You are tuned into the Drtyna Show with Dr. Tina Moore. For more, visit drtyna.com. All right, so how did this start? Originally, I intended years back to purchase a home in Arizona for the winter, and that's how it started. So I was going to have a winter home there. I was going to summer in Oregon. Then I ended up buying a much nicer house than I had previously planned on, and it's so lovely that I want to stay there all the time. We'll see. I have not spent a summer in Arizona, but I am north of Phoenix, so I am in an area where it tends to be higher elevation and cooler. You can take your guesses because there's a bunch of different places up there, but I'm not going to tell you where exactly. I had a lot of crap to purge, emotional baggage, but more importantly, multiple storage units. And I'm going to tell you how I got into this mess. I have a bit of a collecting problem, and I don't want to say hoarding because it's not that, but it is definitely increased when I'm overwhelmed. And I can honestly tell you, after looking back through the past decade plus, as I purged almost all of my junk, I have come to realize that I was way overwhelmed. I have been really overwhelmed, like significantly overwhelmed since about 2015. Prior to that, I barely can remember. My mentor passed away in 2013. My mentor, Dr. Rick Marinelli, he passed away of cancer. The years leading up to that were so stressful, I can't even remember them. So let's just say a good 20 years, at least 21. Since I started I started chiropractic college in 2004. Since then, life has been nuts. But it was at such a high level of stress prior to 2015 that I can barely remember it. So we're not even going to talk about that. That was like some next level shit that I don't think any human should have to endure. And I'm not trying to have a pity party. I just, looking back on all the paperwork and everything that I just went through, it was a lot. So 2015 onward, life stuff, personal stuff with my daughter, health stuff, all of that really kind of came to a head in 2015. And I remember clearly thinking at that point that I wanted to get out of clinical practice. I did not want to be doing it anymore. That's a podcast for another day. I haven't really wrapped my head around how I even want to share that story. I will say it was nothing that I did wrong. There was nothing bad happened to me. There was no board investigation, nothing like that. I don't know. I hit a wall in 2015 where I thought, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And so I started making a plan in 2015 really, to get out of clinical practice. And that's when I got serious about going online. In 2016, I went online and I tried to start building an online business and platform, which is so ironic because I was going through the papers of like the first mastermind I was in and all this marketing stuff. And looking back at it, I wished so badly for the version of me that exists today. I worked so hard for this version that you see here. And here I am in 2025 and I'm like, God, do I really want to be a health influencer? Like, is this what I signed up for? So I guess you could say I seem to have a problem being satisfied. But back to 2015, 2016, getting out of clinical practice, that is when the overwhelm really, really hit. And I was basically running 2 businesses simultaneously. One business was my clinic and one business was my online business. And it was coming out of a divorce, coming out of the death of my mentor. Clinic was popping. I was so busy in my clinical practice. And I just really had hit some kind of burnout, and I wasn't able to put my finger on it. And there wasn't anyone to talk to about it, because you don't have a wildly successful practice and then complain about it, right? Because if you try to talk to your colleagues generally are not even having the success you're having. And so then they're like pissy with you if you try to talk to them about it. And I mean, that's in any, you get any of you who are successful know this, right? Like, you can't talk to anybody who hasn't done what you're currently doing or better if you want any kind of guidance that's helpful. And then, on top of that, I was just having a lot was going on with my daughter, with myself, with my health. And so those years were just wrought with trying to keep up. Just a lot of travel. My career was taking off. I was getting invited to speak on many, many stages, many medical conferences, many stages across the world. And I just couldn't keep up. And I was trying my darndest. Then in 2018, I got a hit. I get these, I used to think they were clairvoyance. I now realize they were honestly just messages from God. And I got a hit in 2018 to get out of clinical practice, like urgently. I don't know why. So I started unraveling that, which took a minute. And that's, again, I'll save that for an episode if I ever feel like talking about the whole shutting down of my actual big clinic. I still see patients. I still consult. I still work with a lot of clients here and there. I consult often with colleagues regarding, dosing and strategies and treatment plans. I just don't have that big brick and mortar running patients through all day kind of business. So I'm still staying clinically relevant by having, VIP patients and having a tight-knit closed practice. But back then it was just like all day, every day, tons of patients, and started unraveling that and getting out of clinical practice. And it was hard because a lot of patients didn't want to leave. Like, they didn't want to go away. They were like, I can't find a doctor that thinks like you. I can't find a doctor that will treat like you. I can't find a doctor that will put this together like you. And I'm not bragging. This is legitimately, it took 2 years. You can ask my assistant. It took 2 years for us to really get everybody to understand that I wasn't coming back. And then COVID hit, and I was in Oregon, and there's no version where I was going to play that game. So I got out, and that was a lot of people's outs. I don't know if you guys realize, but a lot of people left clinical practice in 2020, 2021. A lot of people. Like, I used to run a high-end mastermind where that is specifically the goal for most people, was to get out of clinical practice. And so, the burnout rate is unbelievable. I won't share it all, because if I did, you guys would get really depressed. Because whenever I share it on Instagram, I lose a bunch of followers, and people say, well, what are we supposed to do if all the good doctors are quitting? A lot of good doctors are quitting. Take really good care of yourself. That's what you do. You take really good care of yourself and you educate yourself. This is why I put out courses. This is why I put out a free podcast. This is why I have my GLP-1 Done Right University. It really is like how I approach clinical care, regardless of what issue you struggle with, regardless of if you're interested in GLP-1s at all. My clinical rationale is inside that course. And so it's worth every penny to understand what it is that you need to, these are the boxes you need to check off if you want to make it through this gauntlet called life, right? And so it's 2020. I'm not even going to go into that story. I went hard against the narrative, and I paid for it dearly. So I was harassed by the censorship industrial complex, and the administration at the time. It's been shared out that they were indeed targeting individuals. This is public knowledge now. So I'm pretty sure I was on some shit list somewhere, and I was getting my ass handed to me in so many ways. And there was this, so all of this was happening. And in there I moved. I moved from my apartment out to the country to be with my soon to be husband. We met November of 2019. So you can imagine, like, I got quarantined out here with COVID. So like, we got deep fast. Like, we had to go deep fast, and because we got quarantined together and we were virtually strangers. So, we got to know each other very quickly. We didn't get married, I think, until 2021. Yeah, I think the end of 21. But anyway, there was that move. And then there was the move of my clinic out here. Like, I had to move everything out to the country, and a lot of stuff went into storage units. So that's how I ended up with a multitude of storage units. And I had also all of my mentors' clinical stuff. So I had boxes and document boxes full of multiple document boxes full of all of his records and his things, not to mention all of his patients' chart notes. And so we have to keep chart notes for, X amount of years. And so I had so much stuff to contend with, and a lot of it wasn't even mine. And so I just kind of been hauling this stuff around for ages. Back to the move. I am moving here shortly as we speak. And I should have been moved already, but I decided instead of doing this winter summer thing, I'm just going to move to Arizona. I'm just going to move all my crap and get it all there because I'm not getting any younger. And if anything happens to my husband, I'm not going to, I don't want to be here in Oregon. There's like no version where I ever want to come back to Oregon, to be completely honest with you. I don't ever want to step foot in the state again. I know that's a bold statement to make. I don't ever want to see the West Coast, which I can't believe. I have so much heartbreak around what's happened in Oregon. Some of you are seeing it currently. You're seeing, you're seeing the curated version that the mainstream media wants you to see. And then sometimes you get to see the videos of like what's actually happening in Portland. And it's a disaster. So it's been a disaster a long time. I have tried to shine light on this. I have been mocked for it. I have been harassed for it. I've gotten unaliving threats for it. But something sinister is, that movie, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Well, something wicked came to Portland a long time ago, almost a decade ago. And it is the hellmouth. Portland is a hellmouth. Did you guys ever watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Remember she moved to Sunnydale and it was the hellmouth? Portland's the hellmouth. If the world ends, I'm pretty sure the evil's going to ooze up and percolate out of Portland. I know LA's bad. I know Seattle's bad. But any of you who have seen all three cities, I think we can all agree. Portland's something special. So I'm ready to get the heck out of here. And I thought, I'm going to just start purging everything. I'm going to go through everything. I'm going to get all the storage units cleaned out. I'm going to get everything into one space. Something helpful I did, if you have land or if you have room, I bought a container for storage instead of paying a storage unit a ridiculous amount of money. Because by the way, that's a complete scam. They get you in on a really low deal and then they incrementally jack up your pricing. And then interestingly, I've noticed with a couple different companies, if for some reason your credit card that they have on file that they're auto deducting from expires and you don't change it over right away, they send you a notice that your card didn't go through. And then the second you fix it, they jack up your rates. And so that's how they jack up your rates. Is like anytime they have to pay any attention to your account, your rates go up. So I was paying through the nose for storage units for all my business stuff, right? And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I decided to just purge it all and do it now because I don't want to do it when I'm old. I don't want to come back here. I don't want to do it when I'm old. I do not want my loved ones to have to do it for me. I really don't want my daughter to have to go through my crap, literally a decade of overwhelm. Let's just call it that. I did not want anyone else to be responsible for my decade of overwhelm. And so I started purging. And here's what I did. Here's the strategy. There is a couple different strategies, right? We've got like Marie Kondo. She wrote that book about if you touch it, does it spark joy? If it doesn't spark joy, get rid of it. Well, that didn't work for me because I am emotionally connected to items. I grew up with a ton of trauma and a decent amount of abuse from a sibling. And I attach, I have this slinky on my desk, right? And you might see me playing with it sometimes. I attach emotion and oddly memory. I know exactly where I was when I got this slinky. And so I can't remember for the life of me so many things because part of my brain was eroded from chronic stress. But I can remember oddly emotional ties to things. It's very bizarre. So the whole sparking joy thing never worked for me. I read the book. I tried it years ago. I was like, everything is just sparking emotion. I don't know what to do with that. Okay. So then I found a couple great accounts online on Instagram, and they were like purging accounts, like how to organize and how to purge. And they all had a couple different strategies, but I found one gal that works specifically with neurodivergent hoarders. And I'm definitely a little bit on the spectrum. That's a story for another day. I've talked about this before, but it's that kind of like ADHD, hypermobility / on the spectrum triad. It's real. These things have been linked together in recent years. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see myself very much in that. It explains a lot for me. But I had some very strange, peculiar behaviors as a child. And I always thought I was just super weird. And I mean, nothing bad, just like very kind of OCD-ish. And it's kind of a triad. So anywho, I did a whole episode on ADHD that I think took off. It kind of went viral. You guys, we'll link that in the show notes for you guys to check out. We talk about it deeper there. But anyway, part of this is attaching emotion to items, and then also ruminating. And that can also be due to, there's a genetic component, and it's kind of this sort of hoarding genetic component, but it's your epigenetics. It's your lifestyle and your environmental experiences and environmental exposures that light up your genes and make them go, if you will. And so you add a ton of stress, you add a ton of overwhelm, you add a ton of moving. I think I've moved at this point, I want to say this is going to be like my 38th or 39th move. I moved a lot as a kid, which is its own trauma. In first grade, I had like 6 different teachers by the time it was all said and done. It was crazy. So I've just had a lot of get up and go. And instead of purging every time I moved, I just kept collecting and bringing more stuff with me along the way. My mom has a bit of a habit of collecting things. My daughter has the same thing. So there's this sort of like epigenetic, genetic lifestyle or overwhelm picture here. And then I ended up collecting all my mentors, baggage from his clinic, and literal and figurative. And so I started following this woman's account, and I really liked what she had to say, which was, it's either kind of a F yes or an F no. And then she has a 3-second rule. If you just can't make a decision, it can go into the I'll get back to it later. It's not really a maybe box. It's a I'll get back to it later. And something else that she teaches is you take out everything you have of one thing. So like I took a whole drawer of, out of my dresser and dumped it. So there's like all my undies and bras. And then next drawer, all my tank tops and t-shirts. Next drawer, all my shorts and leggings and workout gear, right? And so you get out everything you have of the thing, and then you go through that. Like, what do I need to keep? What do I need to pitch? What's a maybe? And when you pitch, I just throw everything into one pile, and then I go back through that, and it's like Goodwill or donation and then garbage, right? So it made it really simple for me. It wasn't like a keep, pitch, donate. It was a keep, pitch, 3-second rule. That was step 1 for me. That was really, really helpful. Once I got in the flow of that, I didn't need that as much anymore, but that was really helpful. It does require you to go back through the 3-second rule pile later, which can be the hardest part. I've noticed that is the hardest part for me, because I'm like, oh, do I want this? Do I need this? The other thing I think that really helped me was I've always had the scarcity mentality of like, well, will I, I didn't have a lot of money for a long time. I worked really, really hard for a long time and was not making great money until all of a sudden I was. And during that period, it was like, single mom and bankruptcy kind of level of, having to make a choice whether I fed my daughter or I fed myself for many, many months. Gosh, years, so that's a tough place for your brain to be. And then all of a sudden your hard work pays off and you start making reasonable money and you're like, oh, I don't have to live like that anymore. So, and then all of a sudden you start making better money and you're like, oh, okay, I can replace whatever I really need to. And so that allowed me, and I'm not bragging, it allowed me, and I wish I had felt this way earlier, but I think it was, it's all of our mental hangups around money and around having and have not, and keeping things and being able to replace things, and not just sentimental value, but like that was expensive, even though it doesn't fit anymore. Maybe if I just keep it, someday I'll fit back into it because maybe I won't be able to afford a dress that nice again. It's like that kind of mindset that maybe I'm sharing this because I know that some of you can relate to this. This is very common. And so I was stuck in that for a long time. And this time I was not. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's age. I don't know if that's just because I came to a new place where like I give myself to God and I know God will work it out for me. And whatever is supposed to be mine will be mine, and whatever isn't. And I'm okay with that. I don't know if it was that or if it was just the fact that I can't afford to replace a lot of things now. I don't know. But I didn't look at anything like that anymore. I didn't look at it with I don't want to get rid of this because, what if I need to replace it kind of thing. So that was really helpful. And then, so this is going on a couple weeks at this point. Then I get to this method called Swedish death cleaning. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is a concept, and I don't recall the woman's name now. There's a book called Swedish Death Cleaning. You can go read about it. But basically my take home of understanding of this was it's either a definite keep because it does spark joy for you, right? It kind of incorporates that Marie Kondo. And it's something that would spark joy in someone after you're gone. And I had inadvertently been doing that. I didn't realize it, but I had been purging with my daughter top of mind. My husband doesn't care about anything. Like he could care less. If he slept on a mattress with a gunny sack out in the barn, he'd be fine. He doesn't care. But I was really thinking, like, does my daughter, A, want to deal with this? And B, would it bring her any level of joy? And so that made things a lot easier for me. So it was kind of a combo of this yes, no, 3-second rule with another additional question of, is this something that I want to leave to my daughter, not just to have, but to deal with, right? Like, I do not want any version of my daughter having to go through my disorganized, overwhelmed shit. Like, there's no version of that I want on this planet. And so the Swedish death cleaning method is actually encouraged in your 50s and 60s. And you go through your house very methodically and you clean it out, which I think is a great idea, even if you're not moving. Like, this is why I'm sharing this, because even if you don't plan on moving, I wish that I had done this years ago. I wish that I had gone through and taken the time to really, and I mean, it's taken me weeks. And so I get why I haven't done it yet. Like, I have taken, if you haven't noticed, I have not been on social media this whole summer. I have been spending time with God. I have spent time with my dogs and praying and cleaning and purging and listening to good music and listening to podcasts and listening to the Bible on audio. That's what I've been doing all summer. And I feel so much better. I physically feel so much better. And I'm not done yet. I'm not leaving here until I'm done with all the messes, because I don't want any version of God forbid anything happen to me. I do not want my daughter to have to come back to disorganization. And when I say stuff was everywhere, it was everywhere. I had, let's just say, I don't know. Let's just take a category, for instance, of games. Okay, so I have games, right? We all have games that we grew up playing, like Sorry and Battleship and all that. I had games from different places in like 5 different bins of games that were all over the place. There were some at my clinic. There was some in a box from one move that I did with my daughter, where we just had some of it and the rest was in storage. There was some in storage. Like, there was just bins of games everywhere. So it took me a minute to get all of those bins together. That was another big part of this, is I took everything and put it together. So anything that was related, that was part of the conversation earlier, where the gal teaches you to take everything of one category and put it together. So it took me a hot minute to get everything categorized. And my husband was like, why are you even keeping that? Just throw it away. And I'm like, no, first, just for my brain, the way that I compartmentalize, the way that I process, I needed everything to be in one place of that category. And then I would go through those bins. And yes, I end up purging a ton of it, right? But there's still a piece where, it's, for instance, I have 2 of many things because of all the moving and all of just all of it. And I knew I had 2 of certain things. And I was like, until those 2 things are together in this category, I'm not going through that category. So that's helped me. And I've had the liberty of space and time. And back to the container. I bought a container and I put it on my property. I bought a 20-foot container. And it locks and it stays outside on our farm. And I'm using it not so much as a storage facility, but which you could, I'm using it as a processing facility. I'm sorting in there, and there's nothing in there of value. There's just, a lot of the stuff categorized that I need to get to. So that's been really helpful. If you don't have an extra room, I don't know how, I know everybody lives in a different situation, but if you live in a rural area, just throwing that out there as a pearl, that was my husband's grand idea. And I thought that was a really smart idea. He put a chair out there and a table for me. and it has electricity running to it, so I can turn the lights on and I can like get to work, right? I can just set up what I need and I can start purging my stuff. And that's been super, super helpful. So I go outside and I made myself a promise. This is another big part of it. I made myself a promise to pack 1 box a day and to purge 1 box a day. That's how I started with all of this. And because I was so overwhelmed, I was literally frozen with overwhelm. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally got all my storage units cleaned out and I have so much crap to contend with and I don't know where to start. So I just started and I purged as I went. So yeah, that has been incredibly helpful. And I like the Swedish death cleaning method of consideration of who you're leaving this to, and because I don't think enough of us consider that. I think a lot of us just get caught up in our own selfish worry and stress. And, worry is so silly. Like, just give it to God, right? Like, why am I worrying about stuff I have no control over? I'm just going to give it to God and let him sort it out. It's no point. I'm such a chronic worrier, anxiety-driven girl, and I'm learning to really give that to God and hand it over because it's not my concern. Like, I can't do anything about things that I can't do anything about. So what am I sitting there losing sleep and fretting over it, right? But even when it comes to your belongings, like, it's easy to get caught up in that worry of it. And I always say that action overrides anxiety. Please take that home, write that down. Action overrides anxiety. So when you don't know what to do, just do something, right? If it's in your business, if it's in your health, if it's just as simple as going for a walk or going for a workout, if it's preparing a meal, if it's scrubbing the toilet, like, when you have anxiety overwhelming you, go do something. And I promise you, action overrides anxiety every time. And when I don't know what to do, I do something. And so it was pack a box, purge a box. That was kind of the original deal. That's what got me. That was me tiptoeing into the water of all of this. And now I feel like I'm like chest deep and I'm cruising. I'm good. I got my system down and I'm doing good. And I hope to only have to do this now. I hope to have learned from this lesson because this has been very overwhelming and it's taken me a long time. I'm hoping that I will learn that I don't need to continue to accumulate, right? It's hard though, with brands send you stuff and people send you stuff and people are always hoping, like, people get my address, I don't even know how, and they send me stuff hoping I'll, promote it for them for free or whatnot. And other companies send me stuff because they really want to work with me. And it's just all over the place. And so it's a constant onslaught of boxes coming in. And so giving those things away, gifting them, donating them quickly, like, that's become the norm. And I don't want to accumulate more than I can handle ever again. I'll just leave it at that. Like, this has been way more than I wanted to ever handle. And I give myself grace because it was 10 years of relentless, crazy stress. From 2015 to 2025 was like a whole thing for various reasons. The last year, 2 years since 2023, when I started talking about GLP-1s, I mean, that was just wild. Like, long podcast tour, traveling around, kind of constantly on the go. And when you do cool shit, people invite you to do more cool shit. And so you get invited to more things. Oh, that was another big piece of this. I canceled virtually every podcast and every speaking engagement through the entirety of 2025. I made that decision in June. And then I started acting on it in July. And by August, I had canceled everything. So I've turned down 2 trips to the Middle East to speak at events. I've turned down trips to the East Coast. I've just turned down a lot of really wonderful opportunities, and I hope to get back to them. And I hope that those opportunities will be open to me again in the future. But I knew going into this that I just needed a break. And I didn't know what that looked like, and I didn't know how it was going to play out. I just trusted that it was going to be okay. And so far it has been great. I just needed to get my life in order. I had to slow down my career and my path to get my life in order. And my life was all this stuff. So fair warning, start pitching now because you don't want to wait till you're 50 something and having to go through so much stuff, right? And it's like 2 whole households, if you will, because I have my whole clinical life that I had for, in my big practice, brick and mortar for well over a decade. And that was so busy. And while we kept that very well organized, it still was so much stuff. And then a whole household of stuff, right? So like literally 2 things to go through. So I'm getting there. I'm not quite done yet. I still have more to do. I'm going to have to make a couple trips back here to get the rest of it out. But this way I know that I am situated, I am organized, and I am cleaned up. And it has been so cathartic, you guys, so incredibly cathartic. And my health has improved. My pain has come down. I was getting such a tremendous scoliosis in my spine from stress, literally like condensing me down. And I feel so tall and straight and I can breathe again. I feel like my rib cage is literally letting go on me for me finally. And now that it has been processed, I'm still working on it, but now that the majority of it has been processed, I realized that I was carrying such a tremendous amount of guilt and shame around all this stuff that I had to go through. These piles and boxes of papers and like I said, a lot of it wasn't even mine, but I had so much guilt that I was hauling it around and that it was impacting other people around me. Like my husband had to look at or watch me be stressed. He had to look at the piles of boxes that I had to contend with. I felt so much guilt and shame. I felt like a bad human being. And I'm sure I'm sharing this because I think a lot of you can relate that. And when you have guilt and shame over you all the time, your health takes a significant impact. It impacts your cardiovascular system. It impacts your hypothalamic pituitary, adrenal axis, and your hormones, and your immune system, and your gut health, and your ability to focus. Things hold energy. And the more visual clutter you have and actual clutter and closets that you have stuffed full of stuff that you have to go through, unfinished business, right? It impacts your health so significantly. And so I hope that this is the beginning of something really positive for me on my health and pain journey. Because if you followed me for a while, you know I've had my ups and downs. And I just think that I'm on to something huge here. And I want to encourage you to also purge. Because if you're dealing with autoimmune disease, if you're dealing with conflict, unresolved trauma, inability to forgive, I've forgiven so many people in this process. It's crazy. Just going through every slip of paper, every single file, everything, and having to relive those moments and remember those people. I just forgave everybody. I just did one big blanket burn on it. Like, I don't ever have to talk to these people again. I don't ever have to contend with them again. I don't have to be friends with them or ever communicate with them in any capacity, but I forgive them. And I forgive myself. And I realized also in this process, what a hand I had in all of this. What a total stress addict I had become. I was chasing cortisol constantly. And that you've heard that audio that goes over the top of people's reels or memes where they're like, am I the problem? I'm not the problem. Well, I really have been the problem in many situations. And I was able to process that and own that and sit with that. And like, even revisit some old demons, right? We all have old demons that have inhabited our darker places. And to be able to just contend with that and look at those crevices and just release it to God and like let God's light in and forgive myself, forgive the people that were involved with it, especially when you take 2 or 3 people that are really stressed out, right? Like I think stress, that's the take home lesson here is when stress gets high, people act crazy. And so there were some situations where, I had been handled really poorly by others, and I was harboring a lot of resentment and animosity, and that was not helping your health at all. Like that's just poisoning yourself every day. You're just self-poisoning yourself by not forgiving. So I want to extend that to you, that idea that you can forgive the people who have hurt you. You can forgive yourself for your role in it because it takes 2 to tango, right? And you don't have to forget it. You don't have to ever have relationships with these people again, but we can forgive. And I know some things are really hard to forgive because sometimes when I mention this on social media, I get messages back from you guys with some horrific stories. And I'm like, yeah, that would be really hard to forgive. I totally understand. And it's definitely a when you're ready kind of thing. Because when people told me I had to forgive certain people my whole life that hurt me or wronged me or abused me, I was like, heck no, no, I don't. I needed that anger to fuel me. And that's another piece I wanted to touch on. I have been under so much stress that I have used anger repeatedly to keep me going. And while that is fuel, it is really damaging fuel. It's really cortisol driven damaging fuel. So you're literally destroying your body and your soft tissues and your organ systems and your cardiovascular system and your heart and your soul by using anger and resentment. And this idea of, which I know a lot of us feel after 2020, 2021, 2022, a lot of us feel this like, when are the people who perpetuated this going to have to be called out and held responsible for it? And I don't think that's ever going to happen. Like, I just don't think it is. And I figured that out a long time ago. God did give me a hit in probably around 2023 that everyone's going to get what they deserve. Good or bad, everyone's going to get what they deserved following that timeline. But that's not mine to deal with. Just give it to God. It's not mine to deal with. Revenge is not mine to deal with, to enact, to see through. All I can do is pray and connect with God and take really good care of myself. And you know what the best revenge is? Winning. Winning. Staying healthy, staying happy, having good relationships, keeping your beauty intact, your natural beauty, your health, your vitality, if you will. Keeping those things intact while people around you are, being eaten alive by their resentment and their anger and their desire for revenge. Like, let them have it. Like, not mine, not my issue. I'm going to be over here taking care of myself, keeping my cortisol low, keeping my stress response low, forgiving the people I need to forgive, working on the things that I haven't yet forgiven, taking tally of my life, purging all the shit I don't need, because you can't take it with you. You can't take it with you guys. I can't take it with me to Arizona because that's just too many pods to load up and ship and pay for. But I can't take it with me to the grave either. And I don't want it, and I don't want anyone else to have to deal with it. And I just want everything to be easy. If God decides it's my time, I just want everything to be easy for those that I leave behind, right? So getting all my ducks in a row, there's another piece of it, working with a lawyer, getting a trust drawn up, getting your wills situated, getting your, all your papers, your anything and everything that you need to get sorted out. I encourage you to start working on getting that sorted out. I have had to hire people in the past, for whatever reason, to get me to take action. So whether that was getting started with strength training, I hired a coach. I have a great guy that I work with who helps me with kind of money management, tax planning, that kind of thing. He's not a CPA. He's just understands the investing and the process, and he understands all of it really well. So he helps me, right? I pay him a very reasonable amount, and he gives me great ideas, but it's held me accountable because I meet with him every month and I have to update him on what I'm doing, right? And so moving forward and getting all of that kind of stuff situated that I was really just sort of like half-assing or not doing or not getting as tight as I could. So I'm getting everything tight. I'm getting it all tightened up. Next up is getting my rear end tightened up because I have lost so much muscle in this process. So I got to get my booty back, but that'll have to wait for Arizona. So, just getting your ducks in a row, it's a process. It's a process. If you haven't started, it just continues to perpetuate overwhelm the longer you go. So start and stay on it and get it done and get it handled so that everything's easy for those you leave behind if or when, God forbid, that time comes. And I hope to live another 30, 40 years and maybe 50, gosh, I don't know. And I hope to keep everything buttoned up and tight so that it's clean and easy. I will leave you with this. I went through boxes of my mentors that I have not touched since he died. He died and we all cleaned out the clinic, and I moved the clinic, and I ended up taking filing cabinets of his handouts and his research and his presentations and so much stuff. And I threw them all into document boxes that I have yet to open. I had not opened until 2 days ago. I did not open them. I did not want to look in them. I did not want to know what was in there. And I opened them and I cried and I processed and I purged and I sorted. And man, was that guy a genius. And he taught me so much of what I know. And I'm going to do a whole podcast episode on things that Rick taught me because it's a long list of great things that I teach you guys here and there, but I was reminded of where it came from. And I was also able to go through so much of my own notes and my own files and my own handouts, patient handouts, clinical research, clinical files, all of that. And it really reminded me that A, I know my shit. I know my shit. What I know well. B, I've been doing this a long time. This whole metabolic health, hormones, strength training, like I found notes of mine, handwritten from like 2009, talking about GLP-1 and GIP and the leucine threshold for muscle protein synthesis and essential amino acids and like all the things that I talk about now. I have been, like this has all been inside of me for so long. And I get caught up just, if you don't have a big following, this won't make any sense. But when you do have a big following, like you're constantly on the chopping block. And there's this weird thing happening right now on Instagram. It's been happening a while where like PhDs and MDs who don't like anybody talking about alternative health make their entire page about trashing on others. So they just like every day post something trashing on something, whether it's just a general trashing of functional medicine or trashing of whatever. And then now they're attacking each other. It's so lowbrow. It's so unprofessional. It's so unprofessional, you guys. It's so incredibly, when I see an MD or a PhD, somebody I know that worked really hard for that level of discernment to go low energetically like that, I'm just like, they lost me. I've lost all respect for them because it doesn't matter what brilliance comes out of their mouth at that point. That is just so lowbrow and unprofessional. And to see MDs do it to each other and put each other on blast or put me on blast or put others who don't have the right letters behind their name on blast, it's like, what are you doing? That doesn't make, like, who are you attracting with that? Those are not the kind of people you want as patients. And patients certainly don't want doctors like that. So that's what social media has turned into. And it's so gross. And it's like a witch hunt constantly. And I just realized like, I'm arguing with people who were like in diapers when I was in medical school, you know, I can't. So I know what I know and I know it well. And I've known it for a long time. And I'm so grateful to have this platform to share it. A lot of gratitude came over me in the past few weeks of like, wow, I've really built something beautiful. And all thanks to you guys for coming and showing up and staying and being here. And I dug out content for days. God, I pulled so many handouts out. I'm like, I have so much to talk about that I'm going to share with you guys in the coming months and that I pulled out of my filing cabinets and all the old stuff, you know, and there's only a few ways to skin a cat. Things can only get so fancy, right? Like right now it's peptides. Before that, it was secretagogues. Before that, it was HCG. Like, you know, there's always something exciting that we're doing. PRP stem cells going way back into the 2000s and 2000 teens, you know, like what's old is new again. And I've been around a long time, like decades I've been in this world. And I am so grateful for the mentorship that I had. And I'm so grateful for the education that I had. That's the other thing. I paid off my student loans. I paid off hundreds of thousands of student loans, bought myself a house, and am getting the F out of Oregon. Finally, I've been working on this plan for so long, you guys. You have no idea. Like, I was talking to one of my girlfriends and she said, for as long as I've known you, you've been telling me you were going to get out of here and you were going to go to Arizona. And so I'm finally doing it. I'm so excited. And I feel so free knowing that I have left a tremendous amount of garbage in an actual dumpster and in a burn pile. So many burn piles. So many burn. It's really cathartic to watch all your shit burn in a burn pile. So if you live in a rural area and you're allowed to have burn piles, go burn some of your shit. It's awesome. So that's it. That's what I want to share with you. Grateful for you guys. Grateful for my mentor. God bless him, Dr. Rick Marinelli. I miss him so much every day. Grateful for this opportunity to have taken some time away. And I really appreciate you guys sticking around on the pod. I'll be back to social media soon enough. Let me get moved here and get my get my wits about me. I highly encourage you to start taking tally of what is in your life, what is no longer serving you, and figuring out how you can purge that, and also getting organized in the things that you need to get organized in while your health is still good, because this would have been impossible if I were in my 70s or 80s. It would have just been absolutely overwhelm impossible, and I wouldn't have done it. And so I don't want for you where I was headed, which was just like accumulate more and more crap and just get stuck in it. And I know some of you are listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, you're like my husband. You have no emotional tie to anything. Things are just things and you just throw them away and who cares, right? And he makes fun of me all the time about my mugs, because I have a couple mugs that are special to me. And I'm like, do not crack or chip or break these mugs. And he's like, you better not have them down or up here then, because I'm going to break them. Put them down in your studio. So he is constantly making fun of me about my mugs. Don't have too many mugs, right? Don't have too many of those things, because some of us are genetically different and we are wired to really, and we have had trauma that has activated the genes, and we are really tied to our things. And that makes it exponentially harder, especially if your dopamine and serotonin are off. It makes it exponentially harder to part ways with your crap. So figure out how to get sorted with that so that you can start to purge your crap, because it is necessary for your health, I promise you. And it is so wonderful once you get it done. So I will leave you with that. I hope this is helpful. Don't forget, if you are feeling overwhelmed, start with one thing, one category. Find everything in your house, in your life of that category, put it all in one place, and do the yes, the no, and the 3-second rule. And then of the no's, you've got throw away and you've got donate. And then of the 3-second rule, which I guess you could call the maybe box, you got to come back to that. But I literally had a whole room of maybes at one point. I threw all the maybes in one room. And I went back and was like sorting through the maybes later when I felt strong enough to do it emotionally. So I'll leave you with that. That's my best advice. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for being around, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Dr. Tina Show. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and mixed by Mike Fry. Theme song is by John the Guild. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on YouTube. As always, you can email the podcast at podcast@drtyna.com. That's DRTYNA. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find all of my offerings on my website at drtyna.com. For more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com. See you next time, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practices of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is intended not to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.